Hello, my fellow patriots. This is Alex with another Disabled Vets Perspective. Just doing a little morning walk. Gotta head off into town and take care of some business. Figured I'd give you guys a little shout out. Wanted to throw a little stick in the spokes of some alternative realities out here about capitalism. And first thing some people will say is, well, if you don't support capitalism, you're not a real conservative. Well, there's a difference between capitalism and crony capitalism. And what we have in the majority of our giant conglomerates and corporations is crony capitalism. The number one and most popular example probably would be Wally World, old Walmart. You got the owners of Walmart, the children of Sam Walton, and he did it the right way. He tried to do all American made, and as soon as he died, they went straight to China so they could make more money. But that's not the point. The point is, there's a serious deficiency between the incomes of CEOs and the people that work for those CEOs. With Walmart, they pay their people such a small amount of money that most of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, have to go out and get food stamps, and they got to get their Medicaid and things like that to take care of their children because medical programs don't really cover it. And you've got the CEOs and the chair people of Walmart making billions a year, and the government ends up picking up the slack for their employees. And that goes to the whole thing I talk about with government mandated racketeering. And that's another basic example, because the chair people of Walmart are very left-leaning because they want China to continue to give them their massively discounted stuff so they can make more and more money. So of course they're not going to vote for conservative values and try to do fair trade and stuff like that. So they're going to be giving their money to the Democrats. So they withhold money from their employees. They make them work for essentially slave wages, and then they give their money to the Democrats to try to put more restrictions on the little people as opposed to the big people. Because all the taxes that take place, they're not going to the corporate leaders. They know all the loopholes. They have 500 accountants looking for the smallest little deviation in their figures that they can use for deductions. But the little people can't do that. So that's the first example. But the other example is, the one I'm familiar with is Japan. A well-paid CEO in Japan makes about $11 million a year. And, you know, that's a fair piece of change. But the Japanese people, when I lived over there, it was some time ago, but it was, you know, it's still about the same. The people there get living wages. They make enough money to live, to support their families, to have a little vacation, do the things that don't seem to exist much in this country anymore. And you have to ask yourself, what is a fair wage for a CEO, and what's the fair thing to do for the employees under that CEO? And in the U.S., we have CEOs that are making as much as $450 million a year. And, you know, hey, more power to them. If you can make that kind of money, go for it. But if you're making that kind of money on the backs of people that are damn near slave laboring for you, then there's a serious upside-down issue going on there. And something about it needs to be addressed. So the bottom line is, I absolutely support capitalism. I think that you should be able to make as much money as you could possibly fit into as many bank accounts as you can hold, and that's fine. But if you're doing it, and the people that are all under you are struggling, I mean, just barely able to exist, almost living in abject poverty and working, you got people working 60 hours a week. And maybe the wife is working 60, the husband's working 40 or 50, the kids get neglected, and the bills still have to be struggled to be paid for. That's not a kind of capitalism that I support. So I think it's necessary to start putting, I almost hesitate to say restrictions, but I think restrictions. I think there needs to be a cap on what CEOs make. And Martin Brudell, he's one I listen to all the time. He made a good point. I'm not sure I agree with the figure he came up with, but he said that he would cap off CEOs at $1 million a year and encourage them to do more entrepreneurship, to get out and start their own business and make as much money as they want that way. Me, if you've got, for example, if you've got 100 different stores, as example, and you are the CEO of 100 stores, you have 3,000 employees, for example, then, like Japan, $11 million a year, make the CEO, make it worth his time, but, put a reasonable cap on it. And if you see that the CEO is making an absolute ungodly fortune, but you see the people underneath him just struggling, then maybe it's time for a restructuring. Get the wages of the people up so that they can start living again like they used to back in the 60s and the 50s. Explain to me how somebody in the 50s making $200 a month could afford 2 cars, a nice house, wife at home, raising the kids, teaching them, growing them up right, so to speak, and the father working 8 hours a day. What the hell happened to that? I think it went by the wayside. But anyway, I'm not anti-capital. I'm anti-corruption, and crony capitalism is another form of corruption. The only reason I mention it is to bring awareness, because I don't think there's ever going to be anything I can do about it personally. I can let you guys know about it. Maybe get the right people angry about it that can maybe put bills forward. Maybe see if we can get something in the law that if your employees aren't making a living wage, then your CEO's wage has to be brought down to a responsible level, and the money needs to be spread throughout the employees that are making the business a success for that CEO, because they sure as hell don't do it alone. They do it with the help of all of the sweating people below them. They are the reason a company is successful. The CEO sits behind a desk and writes down stuff. The employees push the product and stock the stores and do all the things that have to be done. So anyway, that's what I got on crony capitalism. And if you guys have a different opinion about it, I would really like to hear it. On my opinion, on my feed of comments, I don't mind if it's a negative comment. I really don't. But if it's a negative comment, let's discuss it. Let's figure out why our opinions differ, and see if there's a middle meeting point. And that's how things happen in this country. People meeting in the middle. So if you have any comments or questions about the crony capitalism, I want to hear them. But anyway, that's what I got for now. And if you guys like what I have to say, make sure you hit that like button. Can't say it'll stick, but we'll give it a shot. Tell your friends about me. Subscribe to my channel if you want to catch more of my content. Ring that little bell. If mine doesn't have the striker in it, it may not ring for you, but at least it's pushed and it looks pretty. Maybe you'll get the notifications, maybe you won't. But we'll just, all of us stay in the fight.